Isaac. I'm back. I'm not gonna leave
Oh,
you.
thank God! I thought we were
Here.
all gonna die without you. Our fearless leader, Connor.
Hey, you're not the first person to think that. So
Yeah. You're
take it for what it is.
you're our fearless leader in the apocalypse. You're like Rick Grimes.
Well, I don't want to be arrogant or anything, but I will say that I'm pretty proud. I'm pretty proud of the fact that I am the reason why this whole Facebook network knows each other. You know what I mean? Like I literally caught you guys like I casted a net, and you guys all randomly came into my Facebook page. And
you're our Rick Grimes.
Hey, do what I can, man. I just thought it would be fun for people online. That's why we know
so
Jennifer.
fun.
That's why we got guys like Rich Casada and Jeff Haggart and BJ Carpenter and all the rest of them. We all know each other because I casted
all
this
because
net,
of you.
and I happened to catch the right people. So
it's
praise the Lord.
Praise Jesus. I was just thinking in my quick potty break that Isaac, I need to get you into the sandbox immediately, because this is an area of my website that needs a lot of work. But it exists as a common play space for me to highlight and direct people to all of the other creators. So there's a channel there to get right into Connor's place. There's a channel there to get into Boone's place. So like I love the daily archetype as like yes, let's like amplify that. So I'm gonna need to plug that in like ASAP, because that's all really what this is all about, is like the interconnectedness. Connecting the neurons in the brain, so to speak, and getting us all kind of like in some common play spaces.
Speaking of archetypes, it's kind of funny how in the wake of all this, movies like Contagion, which everyone thought was horrible in 2011 when it came out, is now making this huge rise to fame. It's like number one every day.
I saw that movie, I think, when I was in theater, and if I remember correctly, I think it started out sort of the same way. Like some bat pooped in a soup in China or something. Something like that. It started in China. I think it had something to do with a bat or a monkey. So it's kind of prophetic in a way.
There's a lot of those. I've been seeing just coming through the algorithms, a lot of things have popped up, and they've all just been delicious, because it's been like the episode of South Park with the Peruvian pan flute pandemic.
Yeah.
It was like that's pretty much exactly where we're at right now. It's that level of pandemic. It is the Peruvian pan flute pandemic.
You can't go anywhere without hearing about it. You can't go anywhere. I went to the grocery store.
I'm done, bro. I'm so done.
So annoying.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. Is I wrote a blog about comedic relief and the necessity for comedy. And one thing that humans, so I've heard some people say that, oh, the memes and the jokes, those people aren't taking it seriously. It's like, no, dude. Human beings are really good at taking horrible situations and transmuting them into comedy.
Yes. Well, hey, one thing on that, like I made a post earlier or last night about this whole idea that sort of like the future myth, I think, the uniting myth sort of for our culture, since that's something we've been talking about, that there's sort of like, and you guys talked about this a little bit on your podcast, a few weeks ago. The alchemical myth kind of has that potential. Of course, not that we're going to go out and, start tinkering with alchemy, but the metaphor of it. And one of the main ones is this idea of being able to hold opposites. And mainly what that's talking about is holding good and evil. And the reason that that's such a critical thing is because usually what's happening is we're either acting, we put on the persona or projection of like, look how great I am. I'm like this perfect person. And then meanwhile, we're repressing the opposite, which is some tendency that we're not so great. And then that'll usually come out somehow. And so holding the opposites means mostly just to be honest with first ourselves and say, hey, we're all capable of doing, screwed up shit, whatever. And a lot of, I think, how that manifests is through humor. To your point a second ago, is if we can laugh at ourselves and laugh at each other, then we can kind of see how we're all kind of, in this fucked up circus together or whatever, and make it out.
Humor is a great way to channel your own pathology a little bit.
Right.
It's a healthy way to do it.
Right, and it's a good way to communicate too, especially with complicated and nuanced issues.
Yeah.
My background actually is as a science educator, and it's as a science shit poster. So like that's my whole domain, is like I just love triggering and just with the edgiest shitting on anti-vaxxers and communicating science in a way that's really funny and entertaining, even when it's super dark, like make plague jokes and stuff. Like, it totally is that, and then that spawned off into history and video games and a bunch of other places. But like the value of humor can't be understated, and it really like invoking the duality thing, the whole binary light and dark, yin and yang. The outrage and the joy, which is how I'm framing those particular machines on our discourse within my own show. Super fucking helpful to just like, yes, we need the whole spectrum. We need the larger view of the fucking situation. And comedy, oh my God, tragedy and comedy is another one of those absolutely crucial. Like the fucking ancient Greeks understood this.
Viktor Frankl made completely. A long chapter, not a long chapter, but a chapter in his book that definitely everybody should read. Man's Search for Meaning. Is he talks just about the necessity of humor, and he's a guy, you guys I'm sure know the story, but he survived the Holocaust as a Jew and then went on to be a super successful psychiatrist or psychologist after that. And he one major chapter in that book I think is just about the necessity that we all need to maintain a sense of humor.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial.
Don't know this, and I included this in my blog, but a lot of people don't know this, but comedy was a big commodity to the prisoners in Auschwitz, because sometimes when things are so awful and horrible, the only thing that you can do as a human with a human response is to laugh or to make a joke about it. It's almost a way to to turn it into something that's positive, even though objectively it's not a positive situation, but you can appreciate the subjective aspect of humor that's within it, and that's why the funniest comedians, I hate to say this, but guys like Louis C.K. and I understand that whatever happened with him is a whole different issue, but the reason people liked him so much is because he wasn't afraid to go there. He wasn't afraid to take something really dark and turn it into something that most people found funny.
One of my favorite little gigs or whatever, or bits that he did, Louis C.K. is he talked about he has a daughter that was like, I don't know, 4 years old at the time, and I forget how it all went, but basically she's like, she kind of realized death. She's like, he went away, but okay, so she's like, Daddy, what's gonna happen to da da da? Anyway, at the end of it, he kind of just talks about how the sun's going to explode, and then he realized how she realized all of a sudden that everybody she knows is going to die. But we lost him.
He's back.
Oh boy, I'm in the middle now.
Okay, I might
sandwich.
Now for a word from our sponsor.
No, there's a huge value there, and some of the people that I've met that have the brightest souls on this, that are just like the funniest, lightheartedest people, happen to be dying.
Yeah,
it really is like it puts you in the, and this is becoming a whole core part of my mission, is just like that fragility of life. Like, we need to be able to laugh at the fucked up, especially the fucked up shit, you guys, because like that's what living is all about. That's if we have a reason to be here, it's to laugh and be merry, you know, and to drink and have a good fucking time. If there's a purpose to life at all, you know, there's so much value in that, so much value in comedy and just kind of seeing things for how they actually are, and being okay with that, and even joking about it, I think is hugely beneficial. I think, especially within the context of this whole coronavirus scare, I think that, you know, we definitely could use a little comedy in this domain. Certainly within respectful bounds. I've had some inappropriate jokes of my own that I slightly regret, but not really. But
yeah, that, I don't know if you remember, if you know Bob Hope. I don't know about people's age, but that was his whole thing, was he would perform to the troops, you know, when we were in our different wars over the last century. And yeah, it's just like, even in serious times when people gotta go out and kill each other, defend their countries or whatever, we've got to find ways to smile and laugh and not take things too seriously and not let the darkness overtake us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Holocaust invokes this shit a lot. Like, the Holocaust is the darkest part of our fucking history that's tangible for a lot of people, and it brought out, you know, some of the most beautiful love stories, the most beautiful music, the most, you know, it's not just comedy. Certainly you look at your Charlie Chaplins of the world, and there's definitely some there's room for that, but that's a great example of a point in our history where we were, you know, just let the darkness was overwhelming, and it spawned and created so many other beautiful things, so many beautiful, hauntingly beautiful pieces of music and art and just culture in general. So
yeah, and I would say the contrast with that is sort of what happened with you know, the former Soviet Union and Mao's China, where it lasted longer and the death toll was higher, and you don't see those stories because they really try to keep everything secret, and they didn't have, like, you know, the big art influence or comedy or anything else. They were mostly trying to act like everything was fine, and that's like the worst way you can be at those times. You know, you've got to be honest and find ways to laugh about it or perform some kind of art, be creative. But anyway, those are things that we should be remembering right now as things are getting weird, and they'll probably get weirder. We've got to find ways to even just do things like this, just to laugh and let each other know that we're just human beings here for each other.
Yeah. You know, wash your hands. You don't need 2 years worth of fucking toilet paper, bitch. Calm the fuck down. Just wash your hands, and, like, don't go to concerts, and, like, don't get on a plane unless you need to. Yeah. It really is like that level of shit. But on China, there's a fascinating thing to get into there. I think they really do need a Buddhist resurgence in China in terms of transforming what they have into something resembling a democracy, because Buddhist philosophy encompasses a lot of these kind of classic liberal ideas, but China has become an extremely interesting character on the global stage, and they have totally ruled with this kind of authoritarian fist, and I think it's unsustainable. I don't think China's going to make it, you know, into the next century with this model. It does worry me. But yeah, there's some valuable lessons in Buddhism there. I'm saying this as somebody who's just flirted with the ideas of Buddhism. Yeah, I think that we could make a lot of progress there, because they're by far, China and Russia are our biggest adversaries right now, and that's not an enemy. Okay, I'm not framing them as an enemy. Yeah, but these are adversarial forces that we are going to have to compete with, and this gets into everything from health and, you know, the shit like we're dealing now with the viruses, gets into Yes,
lunar colony.
space exploration is a huge one. Huge one. Biotechnology, if we're talking about gene editing and designer babies and that kind of shit, like we are gonna have to be dealing with China ongoing for the next 100 years, and the best thing that we can do is try to nudge them in the right direction, maybe towards democracy, towards liberal values, and I think Buddhism might actually be a valuable vehicle to do that in. Like it sounds so pretentious coming from some like douchey white guy, but like because we just had this on my show the other day where I was talking to another like a kid, I'm like, oh shit, we just solved Middle East peace. Like, because here's this part in the Quran where they talk about Jesus. Let's fucking focus on that. Let's use that to fucking mend the bridges. You know what I mean? Like, oh, how pretentious to be like, yes, China, we can solve all the world's problems. But
on China, I don't know the details on it, and I'm not, pushing any religion over the other or whatever. But it will be interesting to see play out because a lot of it is underground, but Christianity is spreading in China, faster than it's spread just about anywhere in history as far as the numbers go. But the weird thing about that, and you can, there's good and bad things about every religion and ideology, but the weird thing about that is it's underground. So, there could be good things that would come out of that potentially for the culture and bad things. But the weird thing that's going to be with those kind of movements is them being underground because, the problem with a lot of movements in the past, religious movements, ideological movements or whatever, has been they would take whatever ideology, whether it's communism, fascism, Christianity, whatever it is, and it would be forced through the government. And so now you're seeing some where instead of it being forced through the government, it's like grassroots.
Yes, it's bottom up.
The government's kind of pushing their pseudo-communism or whatever, so it's going to be weird to see it play out.
Yeah, the answer here is totally bottom up. It's not top down.
Yeah.
This has been my whole spiel on American politics because everybody's ready to storm the castle and drag the king to the guillotine, and I'm like, well, no, you actually have to do, especially if you use your voice and you unite with, other people who share your voice. I mean, we're a lot more powerful than they are. It really is a ground up, grassroots, bottom up change that needs to happen on a fundamental social level before it can even trickle up to the government level. I mean, and you look at civil rights movement. Okay, that was a cultural shift that happened here first. I realize I'm pointing to my pinky because I'm a huge homo. But that, I love it. That's fucking great. The civil rights movement fucking started at the ground up. This was a grassroots thing. It wasn't like, hey, Mr. King, tell the black people that they're people. It was like, no, motherfucker, we're people. We're all people. And we changed the cultural zeitgeist on that shit. It's the same thing with the women's suffrage movement. It's the same thing with the marriage equality and the LGBT community thing. It's the same. This is how we move society forward. It's by shifting the conversation, by shifting the cultural zeitgeist, which I keep. I don't have another word for that. I wish it wasn't like a zeitgeist, like some like ugly sounding German Nazi word for that, but.
Well, it just means the spirit of the time, which fits.
It does fit. It's a great word, but that's another recurring thing on my show. That's like any word in German sounds ugly. It's like Schweinholz.
Well, you can just say culture because the government is not the culture. The government is like it is a reflection of the culture, but it's because the government is not really like our overlords. The government is as much as an overlord as we allow them to be. Yeah. So but then so this weird sort of echo chamber happens. So like in the 60s when there was the civil rights movement, it was very different because people were going out and they were saying, we're not letting black people eat here because that's the way it is. And they were saying overtly, this is what we're doing. And then people like Martin Luther King Jr. would say, no, everybody needs to have equal rights. And he would always include, that includes, red and yellow, black and white, all the races, not just like black power. He stood up against that terminology, black power.
Fiercely, yeah. A lot of people don't realize
then after Martin Luther King Jr. was unfortunately assassinated, I feel like that's when a lot of those movements kind of, like, that's what Jordan Peterson talks about a lot, is after that's when it turned into like a cultural Marxism kind of movement, because then it wasn't just like, hey, let's agree to desegregate and everything. Then it was, oh, if you're born white, cisgender, straight male, then you're oppressing people, or all these things, all these like pushes for equality that are completely out of anyone's control. But then they want to push for equality that can't be pushed for, when it's like the ultimate equality is if someone commits a crime or has a crime committed against them, let justice play it out. And then same thing with everything else. But it's in this weird place now where the equality police have got to come and be like, oh, was that job hire or that criminal thing, or was there some racism behind it? So it's kind of gotten out of hand, especially in this generation. And I think same thing happened with the feminist movement and the LGBTQ movement, where we all agree equality. Then they kind of like went too far, and they're like, no, we want to also be able to say, like, mandate that you're going to say Zer and Zim and Elfkin and everything else. It's like you got to draw the line somewhere instead of just try to like take over the government and start mandating things.
This is totally a thing because they're confusing. They're confusing what actual equality is.
Right.
Equality. I'm burpees. Excuse me. I've been chugging Monster. Equality is equality of opportunity. Everybody should have the same opportunity. If you say equality of outcome, regardless of what you put in, you get the same thing.
That's impossible.
That is a backwards, dangerous fucking idea. If you're saying no, regardless, if you have this number of victim points stacked up, with your immutable characteristics, regardless of that earns you some kind of special victim status. That's a thing that I have a fucking problem with. And this is especially prevalent. Like it hits me the hardest with the alphabet soup with the LGBT people, because this used to be kind of a unified coalition of people who all understood that the rainbow was for all of us. We all share in the vision of a brighter future. It really is this kind of loss of a really basic, let's judge each other by the content of each other's characters and not by our tribal loyalties or our skin colors or our sexual orientations or whatever. So much of that is lost, especially on the left right now, and then especially in the intersectional communities and the intersectional feminist communities and in the alphabet soup. So this is something that I was not ready to become a warrior in this particular battle, but everybody's fucking afraid to say it. Everybody and their dog is terrified their tits all the way off to where they won't even fucking open their mouths about this shit because it's not PC. Well, fuck your PC-ness, bro. I mean, just like, it needs to be said. It goes too far. It goes too far. Okay? Like Martin Luther King, great. Eradicate all white men because they're white and have penises. I'm sorry, that's too fucking far. Like, I just spilled fucking Monster on my computer. Holy fuck.
Calm down, dude. Calm down.
I know. I'm all fucking worked up. Hold on.
You're a mess. All right.
I am a mess.
1 minute break.
I think I'm good. I think Jesus. I can't believe I just spilled fucking Monster all over my computer. It's fine. I have Apple Care. I'm like thinking like fuck, this is like I cashed out my retirement to get this like $4,000 brand new MacBook fucking Pro. And it's fine. It's great. Everything is awesome. Where the fuck did I go? I lost my screen.
I see you. I don't know what happened to anything else though.
I did put the link in the description. Put your PC to work fighting against the coronavirus. You can donate your processor, your graphics card, and if you're a gamer, especially, you can donate that same graphics card that powers your crazy games. You can use that to help fight the virus, which I think is a rad and nerdy way to contribute to this. I've been at part of SETI at home for a while and using extra processor power to look for aliens. So like the protein folding one is very cool as well. Need to get people in on that because it's a collaborative enterprise. It's going to take us all working together to really solve this problem, and getting the message clear and cohesive to kind of recenter us back on the topic of the stream, because it's gone everywhere, which I personally love. That's my whole show. Mindwave goes down a bajillion rabbit holes, but like recentering back on that, like, what do we do about this whole coronavirus thing? Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with personal responsibility, and just awareness. And it doesn't require some, you don't gotta go fucking crazy. Just be.
Yeah, and I agree. And those are things that we said. But one thing that I hope we will try to see now is just like a realignment of values as much as we can. Just like you're saying in China, that they need to have a resurgence of Buddhism or whatever.
As a philosophy, not necessarily like a state religion. I don't want any confusion there.
Yeah.
Because Buddhism is more of a philosophy.
Culturally or for their own nation's zeitgeist. Yeah. But, I mean, here, I think we should try to have something along those lines, too, especially now when we're seeing people, like, everybody's getting the cold, so every man for himself, we got to have clean asses. It's like nobody's having their head together, and it's like for the silliest thing when it's like, okay, we should be able to start seeing like, okay, everybody's fine, nobody's dying, people are catching another version of the cold or flu, that's too bad, be careful, wash your hands, all those things you're saying. But other times in history where maybe people had a Buddhist or other sort of religious myth behind them, then it's like there's tragedy, so come together and let's like talk about our story kind of thing, which is sort of what we're doing here and in the Facebook groups and in general and things. But yeah, we need to figure out how to be there for each other and figure out how to realign our values that's more than just having clean buttholes and all that. It's like, let's try to figure out how to be there for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a challenge of a fucking century, man. It really is. Like, and it's not the CDC or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC that's actually doing the important work here. Granted, the CDC is doing very important work. That was not a dig. It's the people within the culture who are trying to spread the better message, the better conversation. We're right. The ones on the ground actually doing the work that needs to be done to shift the cultural perception around this thing, to get us moving in the right direction, because so much of it is just total abandonment of reason, just total hysteria, total just nonsense, and it takes that refocusing, and it really is conversations like this that do that. So
this is good, because I was telling Connor earlier before you got here that I usually work from home, and so today I was just like in my right mind, but I was like, oh yeah, my license, I got to take my 5-year test and renew it. So I thought I'd just run to the DMV, and here at my local DMV, it's usually pretty efficient where I get in and out of there pretty quick. But like at 2:00, there's like a line around the block when there's usually not a line at all. I mean, just like a short one. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do the DMV another day. And then it's like, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I should get a couple things, like at least the dog food, because my dog has the fresh, the refrigerated kind of dog food.
All right.
So then just run around for that. It's like you can get sucked into the mob with it. It's like really horrible traffic at 2:00 in the afternoon when normally it's not that bad here. At least until rush hour. And it's like, where are these people going? And then any grocery store, anything, it's just like mobs and hordes at all the grocery stores.
It's Black Friday every day in coronavirus season.
Yeah,
it really is.
And the other thing I was saying, it just happened like overnight. Like I went out last night. I was like, oh yeah, I guess maybe I should grab a couple things. So I went to the store last night just because I was bored anyway. And there was like barely anybody at the store late. I mean, they're out of toilet paper and bottled water. But yeah, last night it feels like it was relatively normal, and then it just got crazy today. It's like seems like today the craziness is setting in, and it's for no reason other than maybe people are starting to think. I don't know what they're thinking. Like it's like this mob that just sucks you in.
It's the outrage machine at work. It's the glorification by the media. It's almost pornographic, the level to which they are trying to whip people up into a fucking hysteria over this thing. They're coming for you. They're coming for your kids. You need to be so scared. And it's like that, you guys, is the wrong message. It's the wrong message. I'm saying this as somebody who's a science communicator and wants you to have the best information at your fingertips on this shit, and I'm really trying hard to find like a virologist or an epidemiologist or somebody to come on the show to kind of put shit in focus on this specific thing, because so much of it is just that. It's that loss in the faith of the democratic process. It's the loss in the faith of our institutions and our governments. It's the glorification of ignorance over knowledge.
It's funny just hear you say the word faith, and sometimes I have debates with people over kind of what that means, and it means for the most part the way you just used it. Faith in humanity, faith in the democratic process or democratic system and everything else. But what comes to mind too is that people don't really have faith in anything. So it's like when the shit hits the fan, it's not like they're like, okay, we've got this great leader, we've got this ideology, we've got this religious organization, or even just like a philosophy. They're just like, shit, I gotta go in the mob. And this isn't even that bad of a like pandemic. I mean, yeah, of course, it's unfortunate things happen where people get sick, and of course, especially if they die or whatever. That's horrible, but it could be a lot worse. And the people are just really failing the test, and it's unfortunate.
They are, which is why I'm glad that Connor brought up the Neil deGrasse Tyson interview, because that's really what the only thing he was saying. He wasn't like, yes, I'm a medical expert. He's like, no, this is our moment as a species to prove to ourselves whether or not we're going to take this shit seriously and actually listen to the scientists.
Yep.
We are totally fucking failing. We are 1,000% failing.
And people like him that maybe they're speaking a little out of their expertise, but they want to speak as just a human being. They need to be able to do that without getting all jumped all over like that. He's just trying to speak as someone in the science community and a fellow human being. And that's what's kind of annoying right now. And I feel like we need to kind of get past that, ignoring people like that, or, attacks like that, where it's just like,
yeah, man, no, we're calling them out for the bullshit that they are, because you don't need to be a goddamn rocket surgeon to say, listen to scientists.
Yeah.
My professional career for the past 3 to 5 years has been cleaning fucking toilets. I'm a high school dropout. You don't need to be goddamn credentialed to say, listen to the best science.
Yeah, you just need to be a human being.
Exactly. It's like people attack him and we're like, oh, well, you're talking outside your realm of expertise. And my initial response is like, hello, bitch, mirror, so are you. He actually went to do you know how many degrees that motherfucker has? Like, a lot more than you, bitch, so shut up.
He's been on the universities. He's been on the university scene basically his whole life.
Yeah, I mean, shut the fuck. If you're complaining about Neil deGrasse Tyson, shut the fuck up. As a science communicator, because that's all he ever was just a science communicator.
Yeah, he's a good communicator.
It's the same thing with Bill Nye. He's Bill Nye the science guy. He's not the scientist. He's the science fucking guy. His job is to communicate fucking science.
Right.
If you're like, well, you're not a real scientist, you're missing the goddamn point. You don't need to be a goddamn scientist to point out, hey, we have great information at our fucking fingertips here. We have the best of the best of the best of the best of the best working on this shit. We don't have to listen to the crazy crystal lady who's trying to sell you snake oil bullshit. We can listen to the real fucking experts on this stuff. And it's not even Neil went out of his fucking way. He went way out of his way to say, hey, I'm not an expert on this at all. Yeah. What you should do, go listen to the experts because they know what the fuck they're talking about. That's all he said. And he got torn apart because people are just like, well, you're just an astrophysicist. You're not.
It's like another level of what I was saying a minute ago, where that our culture doesn't have faith in anything. Because kind of what that's doing, what this little Neil deGrasse Tyson debacle's doing, is it's showing that some people kind of have faith in some scientists. So it's like, oh, no, we only trust certain scientists. But it's like, okay, who are those scientists? Oh, well, they got to work for the CDC or this place or that place or have this or that specific degree or anything. But what it kind of does is, in the long run, it just puts their faith in nothing. So it'd almost be okay if they said, okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson, shut up. We want to hear from Bill Nye or somebody else. But no, they don't even have anybody they want to hear from. It's just kind of like no communication. Yeah.
Shut it down. Shut it down immediately. Yeah. I just got this earlier because I've been an outspoken defender of lesbians on my show because they've been constantly attacked. Not so bad here, but this is the same outrage machine thing at play. But it starting in the UK a few years ago, lesbians started getting attacked really, really bad, and even physically violent bad, over trans activist issues. To where trans activists are like, you're excluding us. And the lesbians are like, whoa, I'm just being a lesbian. That means female homosexual it's not about you. But the same rhetoric there is fucking winning. And this came up earlier in a totally innocuous group that was about dinosaurs. It had nothing to do with this whole thing, but it's like somebody came in and is like, oh, I hope there are no TERFs in here. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? And the whole thing was it's not radical to exclude trans people. And I'm like, no, it's if you're talking about exclusion from biological sex dating pools, no, that's not fucking radical. But that side is absolutely fucking winning. When that post came up within maybe half an hour, an admin popped in and was like, nope, we're shutting it down, but we're going to keep it up so that all you guys can see this post of a cute little cartoon dinosaur that basically says, fuck all lesbians. And I'm like, What?
Yeah. Well,
what? You can't shut the conversation down, especially after you blow it up. The conversation it gets blown up and then shut down. It gets blown up and nobody can say anything, and it just becomes. It's not even an echo chamber. It's like an opposite.
This is an issue of like we're getting into strange times where certain, private sector things are more powerful than the government in some ways, and they especially flex that. Like Google, YouTube, Facebook with certain censoring. They will flex their squashing of free speech, and it's in a lot of ways more powerful than what the government could do at this point. And what sucks too is when somebody's like, "Shut up, Neil deGrasse Tyson," or they squash conversation like that. Normally in a civil debate or civil discourse that people are having, people will say, "Okay, that's an invalid point for some reason, but let's like focus on this, or let's negotiate on this area or whatever." But the sort of trend, I don't know if it's the PC trend or whatever, that's just like, if anyone says anything that could possibly offend anyone or anything, which is pretty much all speech will offend someone, then we gotta shut it down. So
it's dangerous. I just posted recently a Facebook memory came up of Rowan Atkinson bringing this up within the context of Section 5 in the UK. I forget whatever the legislation is in the UK that allows them to shut down potentially offensive speech, which literally has cops at people's doors investigating mean tweets for misgendering people dead naming them. I mean, it really comes down to that, is that it really is like the answer to bad speech is more speech. The answer to offensive speech is better speech. Yeah. And if we have to be offensive to get the fucking point across, then so goddamn be it. Right. There has to be people willing to stand on the line and say, no, you're fucking wrong. You're just wrong about this, because these people, they are getting coddled. They are getting reinforced by the establishment, the same establishment, the participation trophy generation that's like, no, of course you're right. And I just brought this up in my last episode with like in Portland when Antifa went violent in the streets and was stopping traffic and like accosting people in their cars at stop signs. The cops were like, oh, well, they're righteous, so we can't stop them. It's that whole sense of false superiority bullshit that like, no, we need the cultural default to be like, fuck those people. Get out of my soup. Get the fuck out of my soup.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like free speech needs to always be one of the cardinal primary values of any culture and any society. And then, like I said, it's getting tricky right now because, it's not like before, maybe, I don't know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, where people were having free speech by, speaking in public places and maybe distributing printed material. Now, the speech is, through mediums of communication like this, or, Google, YouTube, whatever. But those organizations are shutting things down, and they're as much or more powerful than any government organizations when it comes to free speech, at least. And it's just not going in the right direction.
There's a huge amount of nuance to unpack there, because I'm actually this will make for a fantastic conversation between you and I, because I'm actually more of a libertarian on those specific grounds, whereas like I think that fundamentally, like, business owners always under any circumstances, they need to retain their right to refuse service to anybody for any fucking reason whatsoever. As private business owners, I've been always a staunch advocate of that.
I would agree.
And I'm saying this, framing this as a gay man who has said, if you are a bakery who wants to refuse to sell me a cake, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to complain to the government to come in and try and shut you down.
Right.
What I might do is blast you on social media so that
Right.
everybody else knows that you're a fucking homophobe. And that's how it's ground up. It's like we solve this from the ground up. We don't need Uncle Sam to come down the ladder and, carve the rules into stone and say, no, you can't do this. It's like, if we want to solve these problems, we have to solve them. They're not going to solve themselves.
Yeah. And I was speaking more as not like, oh, we need to regulate Facebook or regulate YouTube, governmentally or anything like that. But I'm speaking more that like this is just the state that our culture is in, where that these organizations have a lot of power. And
yes. It's slightly undeserved, and this
so goes, a lot of what we're now trying to do, like that website that Jordan Peterson has sort of in beta, we'll see how that eventually gets up. But one of their like primary things for thinkspot.com or whatever is there's going to be no censorship of any kind. So that's what people have got to do is rather than say, oh, look, Google and YouTube or Facebook are doing this or that. It's like, just go start another business, where people can talk to each other. And if you don't want them to get censored or whatever, then that's fine.
Become your own boss. Capitalism. Yeah. Yay. Capitalism for the fucking win. It really is that, like, we need to shift the main cultural default state on these things to where people who run things like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube already get this. The problem is that they don't, and they are subject to the mob. They're subject to the loudest minority who's making the least sense, and it's working. We're letting it win. We're letting
the latest season of Silicon Valley?
No.
Okay.
So
I really think everybody should see that, and I don't know, maybe sometime I will figure out how to get the clips of it. But it's really funny because I don't know. Did you see the previous seasons of Silicon Valley?
No.
Okay. Anyway, so it's just about some tech companies, right? But what happens is one of these guys, he's like a CEO of like Microsoft, and he's like the rival of these businesses that are, there's some small businesses that are trying to come up and compete. And then the CEO of this fake Microsoft, he's out of a job because their company gets bought up by Amazon or whatever. Anyway, then he's looking for something to do. And he kind of like accidentally starts this movement that he calls Tethics, which is basically technology ethics, and basically he gets busted later he almost does by the main guy, because what he did is he just like copy and pasted some ethics statements or mission statements or whatever from like Pizza Hut and Subway and some of these other companies. But a bunch of companies are like, oh yeah, we got to get on Tethics. Everybody has to sign this thing saying they're part of Tethics. Tethics. When it's just like, a bunch of bullshit. And that's kind of how a lot of these companies are being right now, is they don't really so much care about these issues that they're supposedly getting behind, but it's like they have to because publicity, and they have to because they don't want to get a lawsuit. And so, it's just like, and that's what's really dangerous about it, I think, is it's one thing if like regular people get sucked into mob mentality, and that's bad. We should try to avoid, the herd mind, the mob mentality and all that. But then it's another thing when the most powerful people and the most powerful corporations kind of get sucked in their own way, to where they're like, oh, I have to shut this down because of like some PC herd mind thing, or some PC mom mentality thing. Got to shut this down or do whatever. And so then it's all just this mob mindset that nobody even necessarily thinks, or maybe they think it on one level, but if you let it go to the next level, then it's all good. So yeah, it's a tricky position we're in right now.
It totally is. Oh fuck! I had a phrase for this. Oh god damn it! I lost it. It's fine. It's fine. I had a specific phrase that I was going to invoke there, but I don't remember what it is.
Something about the mob.
It's terrorism winning. It's terrorism winning. We are allowing terrorism to work.
Yeah.
When
it's like
when we allow this shit to go unchallenged, we're allowing terrorism to work, because that's what it is. This is fucking terrorism.
Yeah.
And this has been invoked on coronavirus a few times that I've seen, where people are like, oh, it's totally some government New World conspiracy thing to wipe out, it's some bioengineered weapon or whatever. They invoke all these crazy conspiracy theories to try and justify their mania. And it really is just that, like, guys, can we, where's the table? Can we sit down at the table? Because you're being fucking crazy. You're being fucking crazy.
Figure out which lines to go over and not go over.
Yeah, man, it's so much of that is just recentering and holding up the mirror and getting people to realize what they're actually saying.
Well, yeah, and a lot
because
of it,
they don't hear it. They don't hear it, and they don't see it, because they're just constantly reinforced by the echo chamber. To they have their placards that they hold that are constantly reinforced, and they're never challenged. And anytime somebody does challenge them, the powers that be shut them down, which there is a nuanced conversation there to have around the responsibility that these large multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations have in regulating the speech that's allowed on their platform. But like it's oh god, see, this is why it's so complicated and so nuanced, and why I'm so glad that I have people in the world who are actually willing to talk about it, because most people aren't. The cultural default is shut it down, turn off the comments, nobody can talk about this. This is not allowed. You can't do that. And my response to that is
exactly why I started my own group, by the way, is because I would go into certain Facebook groups about things that I was just starting to learn about or interested in discussing, and I would, whether it's psychology related or politics related, or discussing religion, discussing these kind of things that we're discussing now, and sometimes I would put together not super long posts, but like posts that took me more than a couple minutes to type out, and it wouldn't be like anything super offensive, but somehow just off their community guidelines, or usually not even that, just somehow somebody was offended, like it wasn't PC enough, or they thought I was trying to be a pseudo intellectual or something. And then it just sucks, because without even a warning in these other Facebook groups, they would just take the post down. And it's like, hey, I would have at least saved that before you took it down. And
yeah, like I took the energy to type that out. I've had so many of those. This is brilliant, because just in that last one that I brought up a little bit ago about somebody posting this stupid dinosaur meme that seemed innocuous but actually just said kill all lesbians, and I was like, whoa. And they shut the comments down completely. I private messaged the admin who took the comments down and was like, hey, realize what you just did. I'm open to an apology later, because that was a monumental fuck up. It's fine. You have been sucked into the outrage machine. You've gotten bad note cards to operate off of. And so much of this shit is like they're just operating off of teeny tiny little note cards. Like, what can fit on this? What can fit? Well, like, how many slogans can I fit? Like, humans are so much more fucking complicated than that, you guys. I don't know what you're doing.
But usually what it is you're right, but it's as simple as if anyone's offended, shut it down. For the most part, that's all it is. And especially because once someone's offended, often in these, situations like we're talking about, a civil sort of discourse or civil debate or civil conversation would be like, and sometimes people say this to me or I say it to them or something along the lines of like, hey, just like you were saying, like, let's rephrase that, or maybe you should delete that and put up something a little more sensitive or something. And that's the way that, civil conversation should go. But then if anybody's offended, when they're offended, they don't just say, oh, I'm offended. Usually they say, oh, it's like the end of the world. I'm offended. It's like, oh, you're like, they start acting like Hitler's on Facebook or whatever, just because some stupid comment was said. And, so.
It really is that. It is not constructive criticism. It's burn it to the ground rhetoric. And there's a very important distinction there. Anybody who has the conviction of their beliefs should be willing to fucking defend them.
Yeah.
To any and everyone. Open-ended. It's that. God, I'm so burpees. That's why live streams are horrible. But
yeah.
it really is that. They're just trying to shut it down completely and say, no, this isn't at all, ever. And I'm like, well, how is that going to help solve the problem? That's going to make it worse. That's going to make it worse if you're just saying, no, this isn't okay to talk about because it's, whatever. It's like, no, we need people willing to talk about it to unpack this shit because the thing that you're doing is going to lead to a new war. Like, shutting it down,
right. Well,
excluding it's,
and a lot of times that's how a lot of times people end up being like shooters, school shooters or whatever. It's because they can't talk through their issues in any kind of form other than maybe therapy, and maybe they don't want to go to therapy. I've actually had times when I would be on Facebook or whatever, having a talk with somebody sort of like this or whatever, talk about, this equality debate, PC debate, how much people are racist or how much of that is just not as much of a thing or what's going on. And then once in a while, a real racist will come on. Like, there's not a whole lot of them anymore, but there are some. And then they'll start like talking all this crazy stuff, and they'll even get with me in the my personal messages. And even sometimes just with like people that talk about like murder and killing people and all this stuff in very serious ways. And whether it's me in a private message or somebody in groups, we could say shut it down. On the other hand, but if you did that person like having horrible thoughts will continue to have those thoughts and have those ideas and play them out somewhere somehow. But usually when I've been able to talk to them, for the most part, I can at least take like the trajectory of their thoughts from like Aryan race and killing to like, hey, we're all just people, at least somewhat towards that direction. And that's the same thing with almost any of those discussions that go into an offensive direction. Maybe somebody said something insensitive or whatever. Usually that's what it is. It's like in the moment you say something insensitive, and then it's like you let the person think about it or whatever. You talk about what was really meant, what's really thought, and then it can go back in a productive direction. But that's just free speech, and people have got to be able to do that.
Yeah. The system that we have now, I actually wrote this down with a checkbox and everything so that I could make sure that I said it. Boom. What we have now is a recipe for radicalization. That's really what the thing that we're talking about is really radicalization. We're incentivizing it, and we're making the loudest voices in the room. It just radicalizing people. We're doing that with the media, the mainstream media. We're doing that with the algorithms that incentivize clicks as engagement over actual engagement, which is a whole nother fight that I'm thrilled to fucking wield a sword in, because I think that whole model, the whole ad model, is broken. It's bullshit. It's done. We can't rely on that shit, which is like why my model has always been a support model. It's never been like, yes, let's figure out how to get these corporate dickholes to try and pay us to hawk their shit on our platform, because that's the system that we have as content creators. That's a system that exists for us to go into, and we have to be the ones that are saying, excuse me, bitch, no, that's not how this works. We can make this work another way. We are the most advanced species of space monkey in this pocket of the universe, motherfuckers. We can do better. We can do better. That's my profile picture in a fucking nutshell. That's me in a nutshell right there. We are the most advanced species of space monkey that has ever existed in this pocket of the universe. We can do fucking better than this shit, because this is nonsense. It's nonsense. Digital fist bump, bro. I love it. And you know what? I love that I got I randomly stumbled into being the host of this, because now I can go up into the corner and I can download that audio and I'm going to put it on my show. I hope you're okay with that.
Cool.
We're going to make it an outrage machine episode, and I totally got to get you on in these domains, because the breakdown of social discourse and our mutual interests and just general philosophy, I think we have there's not chemistry, there's alchemy there.
Yeah,
to just tickle those.
Yeah, well, and what's tricky about it too is what was the word you used a few minutes ago? It's breeding. What was the word?
Radicalization, just in general. It's extremism.
Normally, okay, we've been on this planet for you know how many years, a lot of years, whether you want to call that tens of thousands of years or millions of years or whatever.
Approximately 4.6 billion.
Well, right. Although it's hard to say how many thousands
in terms of the Earth, but anatomically, modern humans, the estimate is around 200,000.
How long would you say that we have been on Earth with our approximate same brain structure?
200,000 years.
Okay.
For anatomically modern humans like you and me that are the same species of weird monkey, 200,000 years.
Sure.
Before that, we have pre ancestor kind of hominids, other lower humans or other species of weird monkey that have gone extinct.
Sure.
This is another thing. Did you know, listener or viewer? I'm gonna get right up in the camera here. Viewer, did you know? Did you know that we are actually not Homo sapiens? We are Homo sapiens sapiens. We are actual Homo sapiens when extinct. Yes, actual Homo sapiens when extinct. We are Homo sapiens sapiens. It's redundant because we're the wise man.
There's been a bunch of human species, at least 6.
Oh yeah. 4. Most of the species of humans who have ever existed are gone. They don't exist anymore, but they were still fucking humans. Well, that's really important. A lot of people don't fucking understand that.
The point I was getting at was that usually in the history of human beings, the way that we're made up, or even if you want to say before, whatever, whether you want to say that's tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years, whatever. The point is that what we would do is sometimes we would solve things with our words, but mostly at some point we would solve it through violence of some sort.
With the sword.
We
solved it with
whatever,
the
sword or the spear, or the fist or whatever.
The guillotine, the gallows.
Right. But
humans are.
Right.
That's
so what
how
I'm
we usually
getting at
solve
is
shit.
our psychology of, if we can't talk things through, like have thoughts and have discourse, whether it's in a chat group on wherever, if we can't talk things through, then what it breeds is a person, gets shut down when they're having insensitive thoughts, or maybe even horrible thoughts, horrible ideas, like some of the ones I mentioned a few minutes ago. And then that breeds the innate psychology of what can turn into real violence, whether that's with, and as much as people want to say, okay, we just need to take away everybody's ability to get guns or whatever. Here in California, it's almost impossible to buy even one bullet. But when people get violent, like there was a thing just a few years ago where some person, I don't know the whole backstory to him, but he decided he wanted to be some kind of a terrorist or whatever, and he used his car for a weapon. Went down Venice Boulevard, where there's like usually 10,000 people just walking up and down the street as pedestrians, and he killed as many people as he could before he got stopped. Of course, that's all horrible things and all that, but the point is, if people can better talk through even bad ideas, then usually they will come to a better understanding of what to do with those ideas. Like a lot of ideas that I've had, especially the past couple of years, I don't think they ever would have manifested as anything horrible like that. But because I've been able to, talk them through with people online, random people that I disagree with, random people that maybe I want to learn from or whatever, then what that's caused me to do is go out and read a couple huge books on the subject and come to a better understanding of it. And then that way I feel like if I'm talking to those people again, or someone with that kind of belief, then I can see where we can disagree and agree, and how and why and all that stuff. But that only comes about because of free speech.
Yeah, a fundamental right that we have instilled in ourselves. It is artificial. Okay, so it's important to recognize that this is a mythology.
Yeah.
Per Yuval Harari, who I will not stop plugging on this fucking show. It is a mythology, but it's a fucking valuable one. And it includes,
everything is in a way.
Yes. It includes, freedom of expression and freedom of speech includes the freedom to criticize.
Yeah.
It includes the freedom to offend. And if you aren't okay with that, then you need to move to a country that has a totalitarian regime, because that's the only places where that shit gets shut down on the regular. We're seeing this shit happen in our countries now, which is like, yes, when bad speech is shut down, we're like, oh God, this is like, wouldn't it be better for that bad speech to be challenged with better speech? But the problem here is that good speech is also getting shut down on these issues, because when somebody goes and says something insane, like, genital preferences are transphobic, which is an insane thing to say, that gets solidified and amplified and shut down to where nobody can even respond to it. Nobody can even say, hey, excuse me, sexual orientation is biological. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know why I keep bringing it back here. It just feels extremely relevant to this kind of thing that we're talking about, of trying to shut down good speech. or bad speech. I mean, because there is bad speech on this shit, but like if you go to try to shut that down, you're shutting down good speech too.
I will say on that issue, that is a major issue where both sides / every side of that debate need to talk it out more and figure out exactly what they really think, what they believe, and what their goals, motives, and plans are, and figure out what's really, good for both sides. Or, because a lot, like the people who are, I don't know what the word is, but the people who are objecting to certain, trans issues, it's usually not that they are necessarily trying to be trans haters, but it's more that they're trying to learn and help our culture to understand each other.
Yes.
And
to get you to realize what you're actually saying when you say, no, it's totally fine to put a male rapist into a women's prison. For example, it's complicated. It's nuanced as
infinitely complicated.
So complicated, and so much of this just has to do with laziness. People not willing, or even they just might not even have the time to get into these things. But they, however involved they are, they feel a kind of importance where they need to speak up. Whether or not they're being rational, whether or not they're being genuine, it's just this whole, it's the outrage machine at work. I mean, it really fucking is.
Yeah.
Because it's hyperpolarized. The hyperpolarization is incentivized through the system that we created, and all of the problems that we're seeing on this issue are the result of that. They are our own creation. This is Frankenstein's monster,
right
in real life. Like, we made this problem.
Right. Well, I would agree on all this, but what's tricky is, yes, it's an outrage machine, but it's not only that. So this is kind of like something that I've studied more as far as these different levels of psychology, in that what most people are thinking isn't even a lot of times their own thoughts. It's a part of the group persona. So we're going through really tricky times, because before, even 20 years ago, before the internet was a big thing, before there would be very specific, like, here's the way a Southern California persona will be, or Midwest persona will be. It's basically just like the local cultural views and the local culture. But now it's really weird, and it kind of leads into a lot of what we're talking about now, is you have all of these different cultures mixing, not just the culture of like Asia and America and Europe and South America and everything else, or in Africa and everything, but you have every single brain in the world potentially getting connected to each other somehow via the internet. And I feel like we're really seeing that now, sort of in our original topic of this whole herd mind of, buy a million rolls of toilet paper and everything else that doesn't make any sense. And that's like going on, like, not just in like my area, your area, Connor's area, or whatever. That's going on pretty much globally.
Yeah, everywhere.
And it's
literally.
And what it is too is, like, when we would more have like, here's my California persona, here's like a East Coast persona, European, Asian, whatever, we kind of be like, oh, those stupid people on the West Coast, even like in the 90s, you probably, you remember some of those like big battles between like Tupac and Biggie and Jay-Z and all these other guys. It was like East Coast, West Coast rivalry of their sort of like urban persona or whatever. But now it's kind of like we're all kind of squishing together and we don't know what to do. And that's why a lot of times in our whole like squishing together of just everybody losing their culture, and then it's not being replaced with anything. People are becoming more and more this just herd of a trying to grapple onto some kind of persona when they don't even know what it is.
Some kind of homogenous homunculi of the future that's single gendered and single race. Some kind of like
where nobody's ever offended somehow.
Is some kind of Pantone universe where we're all fucking pastel colors and nobody stands out. Oh my god, it's so bad.
Move me to Mars.
Get my ass to fucking Mars. That's a great place. That's a great place to leave it.